Chapter 121. 5.5 years later, Tia's 18th birthday. She's adult now. Want to see it in manual. I was sitting in an armchair with a fluffy backrest and closed my eyes. A smile comes naturally as I feel the gentle wind coming through the slanted open window passing through my skin. The reason why I like my birthday is spring, so I can always feel the wind mixed with flower scent around this time. Wow, then the baby sleeping in my arms began to wiggle. Marilyn, are you awake already? As if to answer my question, Marilyn yawned with her small, toothless mouth wide open. Did you sleep well, Marilyn? As I caressed the baby's white cheeks, slightly, the black pearl-like eyes looked at me. Yay! Did you have a good dream? I carefully kissed the child's soft forehead, smiling at me. The baby's unique sweet scent made me smile. Who does our Marilyn look like to look so pretty? Yay, woo! The baby's small hand reached out to me. For a baby who had just learned to sit alone, it was the best way to express her feelings. Yeah, I love you, Marilyn. I took a small hand and kissed the soft palm once. The baby stomped its feet. Maybe it was itchy. Come on, be careful not to get hurt. I heard the workers shouting outside, but my room was peaceful as if it was a completely different world from the noisy outside. Marilyn, shall we practice again? Marilyn, who was playing with my long hair, looked at me. Come on, copy me. Mom, Mom. I have never sung it properly, so the word that rolls on the tip of my tongue are a little unfamiliar. But Marilyn has another who will love her more than anyone else. Do you see my lips moving, Marilyn? This is how you do it. Mom, Mom. Oh, my lady. We still have a long way to go before she can talk. Laurel, who returned from changing the water in the vase, came into the room and said, No, Marilyn is a genius, Laurel. If she keeps playing it like this, she'll talk faster than the other baby. I can't stop you. Laurel looked down on me and didn't like it, but her smile didn't leave her face. There's no mother in the world who hates her child is called a genius. You need to grow up to meet the latest expectation, right, Marilyn? Marilyn is Laurel's first baby, married 3 years ago. Laurel succeeded in a romantic marriage with Flint Devon, the young division leader of the Knights of Lombardy. Like Laurel, he was the third son of the Devon, one of the Lombardy vassal families. The Devon family, who is in charge of transportation and mobilization in Lombardy, passed away 4 years ago, lying in a hospital for a long time, and their eldest son, Clang, took over. Laurel's husband, Flint Devon, was Clang's youngest brother. Marilyn, who has just been seen the light of the world for 5 months, was a really lovely child with light hair resembling Laurel and black eyes resembling Flint. Marilyn, come to Mom. Marilyn, who was comfortably in my arms, smiles softly and reaches out to Laurel. I supported Marilyn's buttocks and handed her to Laurel. I'm going to the store for a while. Play with Marilyn here, and when Flint's training is over, go home together, Laurel. No wonder you're wearing a ready-to-wear. Are you going out again? Do you want me to come with you? I can leave Marilyn alone for a while. No, did you forget that Laurel is still on maternity leave? But at my words, Laurel fiddled with the petal and cried, Tomorrow is a special day. I haven't even seen the lady lately. I went to Laurel's house a week ago, didn't I? I know, but I haven't seen you in a week. I'm worried if you're having a good meal or if the Empress is bothering you at some banquet. Am I the only one who's easy to be bullied? It's not that. Originally, Laurel took care of me as if she was taking care of her younger sister, who had a big age gap. But since the birth of Marilyn, her worries seem to have gotten worse. See you tomorrow, Laurel. All right, lady. I'll prepare dresses and accessories for tomorrow then. Yes, Marilyn. See you tomorrow. I waved my hand and came out. Originally, it was a mansion with a lot of people coming and going all day, but today it was even more so. I put on my outerwear and the hoodie over my normal ready-to-wear outfit. Fortunately, the workers who were mobilized for tomorrow were having conversations without recognizing me passing by. Tomorrow, there's a big event at the Lombardy house, isn't there? Huh? You've been working without knowing that? Only if there's someone who tells me. Tomorrow is the 18th birthday of Lady Florentia Lombardi. She's the only child of Lord Carlehan Lombardi who will become an adult. Oh, that's why it's so grand. Right. Tomorrow was a historic day when I was finally 18 years old, to be recognized as an adult. I'm here, I said, taking off the hood that was covering my head. Here you are, Lady Florentia. Clarivan welcomed me with his glasses off. Clarivan, who proudly welcomed the last year of his 30s in this year, while showing this is what a man who ages handsomely looks like. This year, he cut his long hair and brushed it back neatly, and his eyes deepened over the years. No way, call emergency, please. And most of all, Clarivan's biggest attraction was Pellet Corporation. He had no romantic relationship to the point where he had a reputation of being ascetic, and Clarivan, who was young and handsome, was the founder of Pellet Corporation. It's a little noisy today. When will the construction be completed? The construction on the west side is expected to be completed by the end of today, but in the south will take a few more weeks because it is a big construction that requires a new road. I can't help it. You're all going through a lot. Even in the midst of dust and noisy construction, he still has to watch the business of the merchant. But Clarivan shook his head with a smile, buying all the buildings and land around here to create a large complex, so I can afford it. Clarivan looked full of pride. 5.5 years from the day my grandfather collapsed. During that time, Pellet has achieved tremendous growth. The building of Pellet Corporation, which I first bought for Clarivan, quickly became cramped and bought one by one nearby building. And in the end, this is how a complex was built. In addition to its headquarters in Lombardy, the center of the empire and the eastern and southern branches have been established. In the west is Angenes, so we were now turning to the north because it was actually a neighborhood with no benefits. Did you hear from Violet? Yes, I was just about to report you. Clarivan presented me with a folded report as if he had just taken it out of the envelope. I took it and read it quickly. Is it the top of Monarch again? I'm ashamed. Clarivan replied with a glum face. It's been bothering me since last time, really. In the north, there was another specialty besides minerals. It was a tree that grew with the harsh weather of the north. Among them, the tree named Triva was fast growing, tough and sturdy, so there was no architecture and furniture were not used. Violet was intent on increasing its influence in the north by buying the tree. However, a place called Monarch Top, which appeared a few months ago, was constantly winning the bid for the tree, beating our Pellet's company. Eventually, Violet, who was worse than him, came forward and headed to the north. But things weren't getting much better. It was the first time Pellet, who had always been on a roll, Violet lost the competition to buy. What the hell is this? Is their identity? I've asked Dave to investigate, but it's not easy. They're so new, and they're moving on a small scale as if they have secrets. Bates says that too. Now, apart from the competition to buy trees, I was really curious about the identity of the top monarch. Jiva tree doesn't do a penny or two, and they're buying a huge amount, right? Yes, it is. They're following about half the amount we buy. But with that amount of money didn't fall from the sky. I guess it's an experienced merchant who was invested and built independently. Caravan said in a cautious tone, to outrun competitors or to preoccupy the next tree plantation, it's not usually very experienced. Isn't that so? The experience of merchants is precious. In particular, the knowledge gained by directly hitting the body is accumulated and calculated, resulting in more profit in the next transaction. In that sense, it was clear that Monarch's upper hand was a very experienced person, whoever he was. Oh, of course, sometimes some tops ignore such laws and produce tremendous results from scratch without experience, like Pilot Corporation, but it was possible because I knew the future and Clarivan had a genius powers. How's everything else then? We've got a request from the eastern city of the Lumen family, the commission for moving up to the east. So I got up after receiving the report of the meeting for a few hours. Let me know as soon as you hear anything else from Violet. Yes, I understand. And when you send a reply to Violet, tell her this. Don't worry too much about losing the tree tree competition. Caravan stared at me. We want to build influence in the north, not really compete for trees. We can go back to the mineral. Violet had better focus on the big picture. Lady Florentia. Clarivan was half crying as if he were almost. I told you all the time. The most important thing is Clarivan and Violet. If you lose anything else, you can always rebuild it. Turning around after saying that, I saw Clarivan quietly pulling out a handkerchief and wiping his eyes. Though I heard that he is cool, handsome from outside. I talked to Clarivan to see me at the birthday banquet tomorrow and came out of the pellet office. It was time to walk out of the main gate long across the newly constructed large complex. I saw a man leaning against a wall next to a large tree. It was a man wearing a deep hood, and I wore it. Thanks to the fact that his head stood one higher than the others, the shadow under his feet remained particularly large and long. It was time to look at the invisible man and pass by. Tia. It was an unfamiliar voice, very low and charming, but a friendly voice called me. Standing tall, I stopped walking and looked at the man. Then he slowly took off his hood. You, black hair that's a bit messy and red eyes that shine brightly in the sun. A boy who completely disappeared and came back as an adult. Long time no see, Tia. It was Perez. End of chapter 120. Chapter 122. It was nice to see him after a long time, and Perez smiled so brightly. His body is so big that I have to look up. His face now has a clear line, and his voice so low as if he was someone else. There were many different things, but it was definitely Perez. Who are you? I could see Perez embarrassed by my cold words. I don't care. I'm sorry, but I think you've got the wrong person, I said and turned around. Tia. With a perplexed look in his face, he gently grabs my shoulder. It's me, Perez. Perez, come to think of it. I think I knew someone like that. The red eyes looking at me were shaking finally. It really seemed like he thought I had forgotten himself. I said, staring hard at Cesar Perez. The Perez who spent almost 6 years without showing his face. It's... Or are you talking about that Perez who graduated early from the academy after 5 years and had no news for half a year? Now you understand what I'm saying. Perez said in a low voice, slightly lowering his head. Sorry. You're not sorry, are you? Hearing the apology directly from him made me emotional and angry. I slapped Perez on the shoulder with all my might, with the bag in my hand. Bad boy. Like in his previous life, he graduated both in civil service and military service at the same time. Perez also graduated early in 5 years by reducing 1 year. He could stop me from hitting his arm with his eyes closed. But Perez only stood still. Let's just say you were busy at the academy and couldn't come back during the vacation. But how do you explain that I haven't heard from you in the last few months? I've been wandering around for half a year after graduation, so I couldn't send and receive letters. As soon as he graduated, I know he went on a quick trip with his friends. As soon as Perez lost contact, I found out through bait. And it's not like in Ward or what. It's Perez who had already used aura at the age of 12. How many dangerous situations would such a person face while traveling the continent with the friends he met at the academy? However, you could send a letter. I am alive to Lombardi everywhere. A smart guy who graduated at the academy can't even think of that much. Strangely, I get emotional, but Perez's face looked strange when he saw me angry. It looks like he's smiling or frowning. After staring at him for a long time, he asked in a low voice, No way, were you worried about me, Tia? He's really. Then you don't. It's like my friend suddenly went missing. Squeeze. I'm glad. Before I knew it, I was in Perez's arms. Something similar happened when I brought my grandfather to the palace to rescue him. Compared to then, Perez is bigger now, to the point where my whole body is completely trapped in his arms. I blinked a couple of times in surprise and called Perez. Perez, huh? Let me go. Then Perez obediently lowered his arm that had locked me up. The sound of clashing between the fabrics rang clearly in my ears. Looking up, Perez was smiling. It wasn't the faint smile he made just a moment ago. The long black eyelashes were slightly curved. That's mean. I can't believe you're trying to spill your beauty. I squinted as I pushed Perez out of my body. I'm not relieved of my anger yet. Yes, I'm sorry. He nodded and admitted obediently, but the apology was swift. I suddenly felt Perez's gaze looking down at me and muttered, "You've grown so tall." Before returning, it was just as it had been seen from a distance. No, it's prettier because you look brighter than before, and the eyes are a little different. He had very dry and cold eyes that looked down on the crowd who gathered to see him. He has grown up a lot too. Perez in front of me was full of life. He seemed to be happy somewhere, like the dog, a big black dog wiggling its big tail slowly. It sounds a little weird, but he's already over the point of being called a puppy. Doug, no, it's nothing. What's wrong with you, Perez? Aren't you from the palace? There's no way Caitlin and Kailus would let Perez out like this. His messy hair and clothes are crumpled like the man who just got off the horse. Did you come to see me without going to the palace? Yes. Yes, it is. I can't believe you came to see me without returning to the palace. I said as I brushed off my slightly disheveled clothes from being hacked by Perez. Go back to the palace. Okay, you can feel Perez a bit sulky in my words, but I said more firmly. Go and show everyone that you're back. After 5 years of graduating from civil service and military service at the same time, second Prince Perez is back. Perez replied with a soft smile around his mouth as if he understood what I meant. Yes, I will. I waved my hand a little at Perez and started walking towards the mansion. Then I looked back thinking of something I forgot. He was still standing there looking at my back. Don't be late tomorrow. Perez, who was traveling, couldn't have returned today for no reason. He had a feeling that it was to attend my 18th birthday banquet. 18th birthday banquet. Sure enough, Perez smiled, folding his eyes finally again. Yeah, see you at the banquet tomorrow, Tia. He waved my hand again and turned around, and my wrist was slightly sour. It was the part where I hit his arm when I swung my bag at Perez a little while ago. I didn't hit any rock. I've never hit a real rock, but I thought it would feel like this. I slipped my pretty wrist and took a busy step again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Lignite, the second son of the Eastern family, Luman householder, doubted his eyes. Am I looking at something on broad daylight? He rubbed his eyes with that murmur, but the view from a distance didn't change. His Paris laughing. Although he was the prince of the Lumber Empire, he became friends from the first day of the academy and was comfortably called by his first name in private. Many followed Paris, but Lignite was the only one who could call Paris' name. But even such Lignite has never seen Paris smile. Until today, spring has come, but it was this morning that he arrived in Lombardy by running his horse frantically through the frightening winds of the still biting north. The Ignite thought something was going on in the palace because Perez said they had to arrive at the center of the empire by today, no matter what. But Perez drove the horse to the wrong place. No matter how much Lignite asks where he is heading, Perez insisted on if it's hard, I will go alone. So he cried and followed with Sarah, and it was at Lombardy that they arrived. Did he even know how to laugh? Seriously, Lignite thought Perez was out of order somewhere. In particular, I have always questioned whether the part that controls emotions and facial expressions is functioning properly. But Perez, who met the woman, was smiling. He has eyes that seemed to be dripping with honey. Huh? Nick jumped up from his seat. It was because Perez gave her a big hug. This, if I tell other people, no one will touch it. He'd be glad if he didn't be kicked for lying. Then there was something flashing in his head. By any chance, Lignite's legs trembled with impatience. Perez remained at the place where the woman left first, returned to the place where Lignite had been waiting, only after her back became invisible. Now, let's go over to the capital. Perez, who approached with a big step while flapping his cloak, had returned to his usual expressionless face. Perez, what is it? Perez, who was checking if the horse's saddles had been loosened, answered Lignite's call roughly. She's the main character of the letter, right? Perez, who was tying the knot tightly with his hand, stopped moving. Also, Lignite agreeing. She's the one you've been writing every time that you've never shown anyone. There were several hypotheses among colleagues about the recipient of the letter. It is the maid of honor that came to bring something for Paris to use once a year. Now it's a report to the emperor and his achievements at the academy. Seeing that he writes as thick as a report every time, there were a lot of different hypotheses to say, but the biggest laugh was what Lignite once said. Maybe Perez has a crazy crush on someone. The people who heard it laughed while holding their stomachs, saying it was ridiculous. It was unimaginable that Perez liked someone that much. By the way, as expected, I was right. Lignite shouted, clenching his fists, and said to Perez teasingly, there are a lot of surprises. It looks like you only like bloody steaks. It's also be about eating sweet food. Perez's love of sweet food was famous at the academy. When asked, he said he didn't like sweet food, but he always looked for something sweet once a day. And when he held it in his mouth, Perez's face, which had always been stiff, would loosen. Lignite, why? It's noisy. Huh. Paris was first in the course. Lady followed and asked, are we going to the palace now? No, I have one more to stop before that. Paris ended it and started to drive again. The palace where the two stopped was a cemetery outside the capital. It was like a well-managed park, mostly where nobles were buried. Paris, who tied the horsetail of the entrance of the cemetery, took out a small bouquet of flowers that had been in the saddle's pocket for several days. The flower had withered slightly, but Paris held it in one hand and headed deep into the cemetery. Richard Lignit also kept his mouth shut and followed in the space. In time, Paris, standing in front of a well-decorated cemetery with marble and statues, carefully laid down the bouquet. I'm here, Paris said so, sweeping the monument with a short inscription on it by hand. As the chief mate taught me, I came back after all the preparations. Paris' quiet voice rang low as if it was buried in the wind. I'm ashamed not to see you up. The chief maid Pigra came to the academy once a year around Paris' birthday with her decrepit body, and the last day she came, the chief maid Pigra said as if she knew it was her last day. When you return to the palace, you must prepare yourself because they're probably all set up. In addition, the chief maid, who made various requests, bowed her head politely for the last time. Please be a holy army, your majesty. It was treasonous for Emperor Jogains to say such a thing when she was alive. It was absolutely not what the chief maid of Prigra, who had devoted her life to the imperial family, would say. Nevertheless, it was probably because that was the last thing she wanted to say. Perez caressed the monument with a bitter face. He was remembered and embarrassed that he couldn't give a specific answer at that time. Perez also has to something he had to say, but he couldn't. The lips, which had been flapping a few times, struggled to spit out the words. Thank you. Even though the sick old woman ran the long way to the young man over and over again. Back then, Perez had never expressed his gratitude properly, and it left a deep regret in his heart. Finally, Perez, who was still pressing his forehead to the tombstone, rose from his seat shortly after and spoke briefly to Lignite, who was waiting behind. Now let's go back to the palace. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I decided to spend the last evening in my 17th with my father. As Galleon's clothing store gradually entered the stable zone, my father was taking care of what he had delayed one by one. Among them, the most urgent was the management of the Cheshire estate, which was awarded with the Order of the Founding Medal. My father, who had been in Cheshire all this year, came back to Lombardy for my birthday. Maybe because he was tired from the long trip, he lost a little weight on his face, but my father is still handsome. No, as he entered in his 40s, the scent of a middle-aged man radiated. Somehow I was looking at it with pride, and my father, who was cutting steak, murmured blankly, Artia is already an adult. Oh, you're crying again. I knew this would happen, so I brought a handkerchief this time. It was to prevent the mishap, in which my father wiped away tears with a napkin he used to wipe his mouth. But my father was surprisingly calm. No, it's really time to get out of your dad's arms, though with a bittersweet smile. Yeah, across the table, my father looked at me with friendly eyes. Thank you for growing up well and strong under this poor father. Dad, I was so clumsy and vulnerable that I made you suffer, child. Maybe he was talking about what happened before my father started this business. I should have protected you more strongly. Don't say that, Dad. He got up and sat next to my father. My dad is a better man than anyone else in my memory. Don't you remember when we went to the palace together? You said my daughter was surprised to the emperor because of the knight's check. Oh, that's what happened. My father was scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. And most of all, you overcame incurable diseases from me. There's nothing stronger than that. Tia, my father swept the back of my hand. How did such a beautiful daughter come to me? Hey, all the beautiful things are from my dad, of course. What? Haha. My father burst into laughter. I laughed with such a father. Oh, by the way, I have something for Tia. My father took a small box out of his arms and showed me what was in it. Ring? It was a thin gold ring made of round, large purple jewels. It's a purple sapphire. Father took out the ring himself and said, it was something I prepared when I proposed to Shani. She was so happy to get this ring. My father's eyes, looking at the shiny ring, were filled with longing. I'll give it to you for your 18th birthday, Tia, but it's a precious thing for you. My father didn't deny what I said. Yes, but I want our Tia, who is now an adult, to have what this ring means to Dad. What's that? My father, who was choosing words for a while, smiled and touched the ring. A person to love with all my heart. My warm father's green eyes looked at me. Although there are many regrets left, I don't regret every moment I met your mother, Sean, and loved her. That's how happy we were. Father put the ring down on my palm and said, so whenever you're ready, Dad wants this ring to bring someone to Tia one day, just like your mother came into your dad's life. My father seemed really happy to say that, and it looked refreshing somewhere. I nodded, holding the ring in my hand, and I carefully put the ring in my finger. Oh, it's perfect. The ring fits perfectly as if it had been made for me. Thank you, Dad. I gave my father a big hug. My father, who seemed a little surprised, hugged me and patted me on the back. I'm happy with the ring, of course, but in fact, my biggest birthday present is my father. It's my first time celebrating my 18th birthday with my father. For this moment, it was so precious that I didn't want to let it go. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the Imperial Palace, a conference was being held in which high-ranking nobles and emperors gathered, a break in the middle of an hour-long meeting. Emperor Joving sat alone in the lounge next to the conference room, clearing his boredom. Nothing was interesting. Beautiful lovers hunting that once made his heart beat like crazy. It was no longer fun. Emperor suddenly felt the emptiness of life. At that time, the servant who approached carefully announced in a small voice, your Majesty, what is it? Your Highness Second Prince is asking you to say hello. Second Prince? Gervain jumped to his feet. Tell him to come in. After a while, the door opened and Paris, dressed as if he had just returned from a trip, walked in. Huh. Gervain smiled in a vein at the sight. Paris had really grown up, as if he had taken over the image of the former emperor. Gervain's father, who was cold-hearted and had no mercy on his children. The second prince, Paris, reached his Majesty. Paris fell on one knee and politely tightened his head. There was an oblique smile on one end of Gervain's lips. He liked how the second prince, who looked just like his father, always looking down at him with cynical eyes, bowed on his knees, greetings. Gervain suddenly became curious. What would the former emperor who had died while saying, you're not good enough to be an emperor, but you're lucky enough to be the eldest, said if he saw his son Paris? The boredom that had made Gervain lethargic a little while ago disappeared like a light. You graduated both civil servants and the military officers in the first place, right? Yes. And you got a year and graduated early in 5 years? Yes. It was a completely different move from Astana's accident-prone career, it's worth saying. Gervain thought, recalling Astana, who is now in the conference room. Astana, who showed no interest other than hunting and women, had been attending a monthly conference for a while, though. It was the result of Astana's own pleas over and over again, and there was no way Gervain didn't know what was going on. He wants to show himself sitting next to the Emperor at a conference where important issues of the Emperor are dealt with, and he could also imagine that it would have come from the Empress's head. Nevertheless, Gervain was persuaded it was because Aljanus decided to hand over the newly discovered emerald mine to the Red Tops. But Stan had nothing to do. Throughout the competition, he just sat there and failed to express his opinion among the experienced aristocrats. And the appearance of the first prince was enough to touch the unpleasant memories of Jovane sleeping deep inside, to the point where he won't want to hand over what the first prince and Anjanus want. Get up and follow me, Paris. Juvane stood up and said, with Paris following silently. Juvane opened the door to the conference room. Huh? Is that the second prince? The nobles who were talking quickly recognized Paris and became quiet. Prince Paris, the second prince, graduated from the academy brilliantly and returned to the palace. Juvane, wearing a mask of a proud father, smiled broadly and declared, Thank you, Your Majesty. Good work, Your Highness, second prince. The nobles scrambled to offer congratulations. Paris stood with his hand behind his back and looked expressionless. But Juvane slighted Paris' arrogance even more. You've grown up in a few years. The social world is going to be crazy soon. Haha. There were a lot of people joking around. As he did, Paris was still in a shabby outfit when he returned from the trip. He looks like a prince. The nobles were instinctively feeling favored. Paris, who silently drew favorable attention toward him, found Lilith embodying the crowd. At the moment, Paris' red eyes sparkled without any knowing. Paris, who had been sticking to his noble attitude, paid his respects to Lula. It was a distinctly different greeting from the way he nodded to other nobles. To others, he seemed to bow politely to his guardian, and their favorable for Paris grew even more. Jovane sneaked a look at Astana. Sure enough, Astana's face was already red, even though he tried to look calm. Astana can't even control his facial expression, even when he's 23 years old. Jovane kicked his tongue in disapproval and spoke to Paris in a loud voice so that everyone could hear him. Go back to Poirot Palace to rest today, and from next month, make sure that Second Prince is present at the conference. Kugon. It felt like a big rock was falling in the conference room. People stared at Astana unknowingly with startled eyes. It was because Astana was famous for winning the right to attend Emperor Jovanes at the conference. In that quiet mess, Jovanes slipped another word. I'll save you a seat next to the first prince. Paris sat silent, looking at Astana's red face, and turned toward the Emperor. Paris kneeled on one knee and bowed his head. Black Kate clapped and spoke in a polite voice. I will obey your orders. It was something that Astana and Jen is hard to get, but naturally flowed into Paris. End of chapter 123. Chapter 124. A grand banquet, unprecedented in recent years, was held today at Lombardi's mansion. It was Laurenti Lombardi's 18th birthday party when she finally became an adult. Originally, Lombardi's immediate family used to hold a grand banquet on every birthday, but this time it was different. Half a year before her birthday, rumors circulated in society. Gallian Lombardi is preparing a huge banquet for his only daughter's coming-of-age ceremony. In addition, there were rumors that Shannon at Lombardi, the former flower of society who was mentioned as the next candidate for head of Lombardi, was helping Gallian. And when the invitation to the banquet arrived, the nobles were shocked again. It was because of the piece of paper that was included in the invitation of the banquet. It was a Gallian clothing store premium dress coupon. You visit a clothing store with an exchange ticket regardless of whether you attend the banquet or not. You can get an expensive dress. Along with Gallian Lombardi's love for his daughter, they could feel that his assets were truly enormous. And at the end of the invitation, it said, for those who attend the banquet, we will give you a gift certificate with 10 gold that can be used at Pallet Home and Interior as a return gift. Wow, new store, Harmony's Pallet Home and Interior was a luxury ornament store that opened extensively in the middle of the empire. At the Ballot Corporation, 10 golds were enough to buy a very good quality vase or teapot there. Of course, it was Tia's new business promotion strategy that forced them to exchange 10 gold gift certificates and spend more money at the stores, but they didn't know about it. They just said she is Clarivan Pallet's disciple who has been taught by himself since she was very young, and they are so close, so he spends a lot of money on her birthdays. The day of the banquet, of course, the attendance rate was very high because of the long line of couriers waiting for their turn. They had to wait more than an hour to enter the banquet hall. The banquet hall is so beautiful that I'm enchanted. How much did it cost? I heard that she's Patriarch, Lombardi's favorite granddaughter. Oh my God. Everyone who came in couldn't shut up for a while. There were such common words they uttered. It's Lombardi. The banquet hall was decorated with gold, in particular gold curtains and tablecloths that glistened more brilliantly in the light of a huge diamond chandelier hanging in the middle of the banquet hall. Especially for today, the window frames were gilded, adding extreme splendor. It wasn't just that. The finely crushed gold leaf floated in the champagne carried by the servants. These were all expressions of extraordinary wealth which no one except Lombardi could imitate. What dress does Lady Florenta Lombardi wear today? I'll take a good look at the Lady Lombardi's dress is wearing and ask my dress designer. After watching the banquet ball, the ladies stretched out their necks and looked at Florentia. Oh, there she is. A woman beckoned when she found Florentia standing where the food table was. And there was a moment of silence between them. How can it be so classic yet new? The slashed scabbard on the arm, or the slightly cut breastline, is gorgeous and so alluring. How the dress will look, gorgeous or Victorian, I can't wait. It was completely different from the existing style, but strangely there was no rejection. That was why the imperial community paid attention to Florencia Lombardi. Well, it's a dress, though. Doesn't Lady Lombardi look so beautiful today? Everyone nodded at what someone said. That's what I was just thinking. She has always looked pretty, but she looks really beautiful today, especially those big fair eyes and white skin like the moon that made me stare blankly. And there's a unique atmosphere, even though she's still young, but hard to approach. Everyone agreed with the words. The cousin standing next to her right now seemed to be a correct characteristic of Lombardi. Again, there was a slight silence. All the ladies gathered in one place were staring blankly at Florentia. At that time, she thinks she felt the gaze from afar. Florentia looked back at them and smiled slightly. Ah, it was a pretty smile, and that made them forget that they were caught peeking. After the brief smile, she embarks on a chat with her cousins. A young lady who blankly looked at her said, as she lifting the hem of her heavy dress. I can't help it. I'm going to get closer and check her dress. Other women, who were a little too late, followed her. Go with me too. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. What are you doing, Tia? Who are you smiling at? Do you know anyone over there? The twins straightened their necks and looked where I had turned. No, I just could feel the gaze. Is it imagination? The two nodded and understood my answer. Tia is too nice. Right. I can't believe she's already an adult. We're so worried these days. Why are you two? Now this guy, that, no, this guy and that guy are going to follow Tia because they like Tia. Then we'll have to kick those annoying flies out. I'm a little busy these days, so of course I'm worried. The twins said with a small sigh at the same time. The two was 21 years old, joined the Knights of Lombardy 2 years ago after being proudly knighted. As a result, they became official members of the Lombardy family in addition to being a direct lineage. It was a completely different move from my previous life when they returned to Scots and became an adult after changing their last name. In addition, the twins who seemed to be together everywhere were divided into first and third knights. They said it was what the two wanted. If you have a child who bothers you, you have to tell us, Tia. Gilda made a new request. Miro nodded enthusiastically next to him. If there's a rumor that someone likes me, I think they'll run right away and grab me in by the collar. Considering their personalities, it's possible enough. I smiled and turned the topic. How about the knights? I heard you took the promotion test a few days ago. Of course I did. I'm done with my low rank. The first time in nearly a decade that someone has been promoted as fast as us. Gillian and Mayron spoke with great pride. That's right, it's worth showing off. Lombardy's knights are not sloppy enough to allow them to join the team just because they are Lombardy's direct line and pass the promotion test. It can be seen from the fact that Astalio was still a trainee even after joining the team belatedly in my previous life. Amazing, you two. The twins' shoulders shrugged once again, and at my words, Sister, sister, me too. Craney standing next to Gilly and Maren called me as he approached one step closer. As expected, Craney grew tall. Now that he's 15 years old, he's already taller than me, and he's catching up with the twins. He's not a baby now. Sub. I passed the academy entrance exam, unlike Perez, who has a free pass because he was the prince trainee, had to take the academy entrance exam. But I've never been worried. Trainee used to be smart, and I've been teaching him early since he was young. But I can't ignore Craney's eyes twinkling for a compliment. I patted Craney's head that's taller than mine. Good job, Craney. It's all thanks to you. Oh, you're such a nice talker. Let me know if you need anything to help you prepare for the academy, Craney. Of course, even if he doesn't tell me, I'm going to give him a lot of money from the finest luggage to pocket money. My lady give me to but Craney murmured whether he really needed anything. Well then, do you happen to have a textbook written by the second prince? No, I just wish I could shake hands and get some good energy. His white face turns red as he scratches his cheeks. Perez? What about Perez? He has been at the top first and graduated early. When I was young, I didn't know he was that amazing. There's a fan of Perez here too. Yes, of course. He's supposed to come to the banquet today. I don't know about the textbook, but I'll let you say hello. Ask him if you have any questions at that time. Really? Thank you, sister. Greenie rolled his feet with a big smile. At that time, the twins who were smiling together next to each other suddenly frowned. Oh, there she is. I looked back at the way the two looked. The most annoying person to deal with these days was walking toward me with a lot of her aides. It was Empress Rubini, who did not age at all, as if she had sprayed preservatives over time. Even though she is entering middle age, her blemish-free skin still makes me feel at odds. I have to see that face on my birthday because it's annoying. You two go over there. I spoke to the twins. From an early age, the Empress had a sense of rivalry with Shannon Lombardi. It so happens that Rubini would try to bump into each other with Shannon at the banquet. It has gotten worse since Shannon pushed these away and became Lord's representative. The twins who grew up next to each other shivered at Empress Rubini. Rainy followed the brothers. Left alone, I sighed softly and drank the drink I had in my hand. Not long after, a pretty but somewhat dairy voice spoke to me. Congratulations on coming of age, Lady Florentia. It was a sweet voice that hid her innermost thoughts thoroughly. I can't lose either. I turned around and said hello with a big smile on my face that I've been fond of ever since I started socializing. I can't believe you're attending my birthday banquet personally. I'm so grateful, Empress. End of chapter 124. Chapter 125. It's Valentia's birthday, the only daughter of Sir Gallian Lombardi itself, but no one else. How can I miss a special day like this? Empress has been busy all these years. Paris is busy recruiting the nobles while he is away at the academy. His original social power in the tops of Angenes led the aristocracy to aggressively support Astana. In many ways, the Empress and Angenes family have no choice but to stand in line with their wits. In addition, she thought my father was completely out of Lombardy's lord nomination as my father cared about the Cheshire territory. On the surface, she was trying very hard to establish a friendly relationship with me anyway. Besides, were my dear cousin Sarah's niece. Empress Rubini said so and pointed to Sarah, who was standing on the left. I could also see Lorraine poking from behind, her head out from behind. I couldn't bear to make a sound, but I greeted Lorraine with my eyes quietly and then looked at Sarah. Happy birthday, Florentia. Anyone would know they're the same on Janus. Even though she smiles, her eyes are not friendly. It's the same as the Empress. It was not only that Sarah was similar to the Empress, just as Urbina and Janice did not hide her ambition for her family, even after she became Empress of the Empire. Sarah was gradually showing up too. Vise couldn't come because he was busy, but he asked me several times to say happy birthday to Florentia. After Shannonette became Lord's representatives, Vise went on vacation to Anjanes, and it wasn't until a year later that Vise was a little different. No, Sarah and Vise both did. As if there had been a change in the power structure between the couple, Vise began to listen to Sarah in earnest. From not having any more trouble to business advice from Sarah. Thanks to this, Lombardi's real estate business, which Reese is responsible for, has become entangled with Anjanas in many ways. Since the two powerful families are creating synergy together, there has been no opposition from within Lombardy. I've sent the presents to the room. Open it later. It's a set of finest pearl ornaments that I chose with special care, so I hope you like it, Florentia. Sarah spoke in a slightly louder voice, telling everyone around her to listen, and the Empress took over the baton. I'd like to rent my villa in Angenes for a month for your birthday. What do you think, Florentia? If it's a villa, it's Peaport Castle with the hot springs. It was the hot springs were recently project net Angenes, which has poor farming and no underground resources is pushing for these days. It is still a word of mouth, but after a few years it will be perfectly established as a resort for the aristocrats. Then Angenes will start a transportation business that regularly moves to Noble to the west using luxury carriage and earn quite a lot of money. It's a story of a few years from now. I've been wanting to go. Thank you, Her Majesty. I'm I'll never go, but I love to take it because a lot of eyes see us. The Empress blue eyes quickly scanned the area as I thanked her by grabbing my skirt, just trying to make sure a lot of people are listening to our conversation. Of course, today is my birthday banquet, and the Empress led all her aides, so people were paying attention here. So this is kind of unpleasant. Oh, this is kind of unpleasant. I have a bad hunch that I don't know why. Too many people's eyes gathered, and this opportunity cannot be missed, Lady Robini. I got up to leave. Then have a great banquet, and I'll leave you. Now that Florentia is of age, it's time to find a suitable mate. What the hell you're talking about? I stared at the Empress Rubini, who was talking nonsense with a smiling face. I almost forgot to control my expression because it was so ridiculous. I'm still thinking, Galgan doesn't really care about that. If Her Majesty comes forward, it will be good for Florentia too. She make angry, who will he match you with Astana? No way. How dare you? As if they're matched in advance. Sarah quickly comes forward in response. Really? What do you think of Florentia? Empress Rubini looked at me and asked, but she's not really asking for my opinion. There was no father here, my guardian, and no matter how adult I am now, I still have a few years left until my marriageable age. Even Lorraine, who is 4 years older than me, has not decided who to marry yet. Nevertheless, Empress Rubini deliberately brought it up in front of many people, so that I can say no. Moreover, it is not easy to reverse the situation even if my father or grandfather finds out about it later, because the opponent is the Empress. The eyes of the Empress smiling at me glistened. You know, you would have thought I'd nod my head because there was no grandfather near me who could face the Empress. Would you leave it to me to find Florentia's marriage partner? But they choose the wrong opponent. I can't believe they're using the surroundings to pressure me. I looked around quickly. It just so happened that I saw the person I was looking for, not far away. Grandfather is not the only person in this banquet hall that the Empress is reluctant to deal with. I cleared my throat with a hum and shouted in a rather loud voice, "Hello, second prince." He quickly responded to my voice and waved at my hand with a broad smile towards Perez, who turned around. She's making me very uncomfortable. I'll make it more difficult for you, Empress Rubini. As Perez began to walk straight toward me, the spectacular view unfolded. The noble standing in the middle stepped back, clearing the way for Perez as if the sea were splitting. He didn't ask anyone to step up and get out of the way. Those who had already been paying attention since Perez appeared at the banquet hall moved themselves. And at the end of the road, in the middle of the banquet hall, was me. Perez strode, looking at me at the end of the way without saying a word, like a person who can feel the eyes of others. Stomp, stomp. Perez stood in front of me with a dull sound of shoe heels and spoke in a low voice. Long time no see, Lady Florentia Lombardi. Thank you for attending my birthday banquet. To be honest, I was a little surprised. I thought for a moment Perez would say things like, Tia, or are you here? That because he has a personality that he didn't care about the people around him. But to my surprise, Perez called me Lady Florentia Lombardi. It was the first time. In addition, he added that he acted as if he had met me for the first time in 6 years. I'm so proud. Is this how the teacher feels to see a well-educated student? I smiled and said to Perez without even looking at Empress Rubini. I heard you graduated from the academy with excellent grades this time. It's been 5 years since you graduated at the same time. What a piece of work. I said it deliberately, making more fuss. With my words, the nobles around me nodded with smiling faces. It was only the Empress and her group that was rotting their faces. Luckily, as much as I tried, good results just followed. Perez gave a humble and respectful answer to that, further raising the favorability of the nobles. Then Perez looked at Empress Rubini. Her Majesty, it was a dry greeting with no family attached. It was also a very insincere greeting to the Empress, whom he met after a few years. Still, the Empress, who had deep experience, said to Perez with a smile, Congratulations on your graduation, Prince. But that's also for a while. The Empress lowered the tail of her eyes and created a thin and wounded face. It was a real sword match between Perez and the Empress. It's interesting, but I'm disappointed. The first prince I've seen Prince face after 6 years is at a banquet. Oh, you shouldn't bring that up. Because I'm sorry, it was drawn because I arrived at Imperial Palace late yesterday afternoon. I barely greeted His Majesty in the middle of the conference, so don't be too sad. This is how Perez can bring up the conference. And then, oh, I heard some people talking today. I heard you'll be attending the next meeting with His Majesty, and your response will be like this. At the conference, isn't that a big deal? It just happened that last night, so more nobles hadn't heard yet. Surprised, they murmured, glancing at the Empress. From the beginning, the people whom the Empress deliberately brought together to with me, and the people who gathered around when Perez appeared, including those who watched the situation further away. Dozens of aristocrats now know that Perez had attended the conference like Astana. That's right, Perez nodded and admitted plainly, and people's buzz grew even louder. As Perez nodded his head and acknowledged it plainly, the murmur of the people grew louder. Oops, please. I was barely holding back my laughter. If you touch me carelessly, this will happen, Empress Urbini. After giving the nobles enough time to wonder, and the Empress enough time to flutter her eyelids in anger, I stood by Paris and said with a grin, I'll go introduce the surroundings to the second prince, Empress. Since he returned to the capital after almost 6 years, there must be a lot of people to meet. I thought Tia would call Paris as her partner, but it's not. It was my completely impeccable and considerate suggestion, so there is only one thing the Empress can say. So be it, Lady Lombardi. End of chapter 125.